Hello viewers, this is Ranjana ma'am here and you are watching my channel, or rather it's your channel on learning English. Yeah, this is also for my basic learners. You all must be feeling that I have not posted anything, or rather I have not uploaded any video for you all for a long time. Sorry for that. Actually, what with the board exams and so many requests for the literature and language for them, that I could not make the time. But anyhow, I'm back again and I have come with something which is very important in your grammar. And what is it? Voice. So the beginners of English must be wondering, what is a voice? In my last video for the basic learners, I had told you about the different parts of speech, in which I had told you that the verb is the most important of all. Why? Because the verb, without the verb, you cannot frame any sentence. In the absence of a verb, the sentence is not grammatically correct. So the verb can be of two types. In some sentences, we find that the subject itself is the doer of the action. And in some sentences, we find that the subject is the receiver. It is not doing any work, it is the receiver of the action. So when the subject is active, like the cat chased the rat. In this sentence, the cat is the subject and the verb chased. Who is doing it? The cat. So in this sentence, the subject is active and as such, it is the doer of the action. So we call it active voice. Active voice. And if we were to say the same thing, I mean having the same meaning, but a change in the sentence, like the rat was chased by the cat. In this sentence, the rat is the subject, but was chased. Actually, rat is not doing anything. It is the receiver of the action. Who is doing the action? The cat. So the rat is a passive subject. So when the subject is passive, we call it passive voice. And how do we change from active to passive? So we have two types of voice, active and passive. And how do we change from one to the other? Or how do we identify which voice it is? Easy. I said now when the subject does the action, we call it an active voice. And I can give you a little hint to identify the passive voice. Not always, but most often passive voice, they have the word by. Like the rat was chased by the cat, but mind you, I said not always. So now let's see this. The boy made a kite. So the subject of the active voice is the boy, and the verb is made and the object is a kite. And how do we change it? Just see. The object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. As such, a kite comes here as the subject. Made becomes was made. Made is past tense, and in the past tense form of passive voice, it becomes was made. And by the boy. So the subject of the active voice becomes the object of the passive voice, and before it we have the word by. So the boy comes here and before it is preceded with a by. So what is your passive voice now? A kite was made by the boy. So this is how we change from active to passive or vice versa. Mind you, in your active to passive, in your change of voice, the past participle is very important. The third form of the verb, like do, did, done. Done is your past participle. Go, went, gone. So this is the basic rule in which, remember the X. What does X mean? Subject object interchange. So the subject of the active voice becomes the object of the passive voice, and the object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. And what you need to remember other than this is the verb. So there is a table. Like suppose in present tense, he writes a letter. Present tense, writes, W-R-I-T-E-S. So let's change the subject and object. The letter is written by him. He writes a letter is written by him. He writes a letter. Writes is your present and simple present form. So how do we change it? A letter, writes becomes is written by him. So this is your change from active to passive. So the be verb and after that the past participle. And remember, your tenses don't change. If it is in the present tense, it will remain in the present tense. So this was your simple present form or present indefinite. What will be in the present continuous form? This is your present continuous form. He is writing a letter, present continuous. So what happens? A letter is being written by him. So what is the form? The be verb, then ing is being written and the past participle. It can be is, am, are depending upon the subject. He is writing a letter is being written by him. Now comes your present perfect. What will you do? Suppose he has written a letter. A letter has been written by him. This is your present perfect. He has written a letter. A letter has been written by him. So what did we do? We interchange the subject and object and put a been in the middle of the verb. Has written, we put a been. Has been written. So simple. This is the easiest. And what about your present perfect continuous? You don't need to do anything because it doesn't have a passive voice, by rule of course. So suppose you were to get a sentence, he has been writing a letter. He has been writing a letter, he has been writing a letter, has been writing, present perfect continuous. You cannot change it. So put a cross there. So in present tense we can change in three conditions: simple present, present continuous, and present perfect. So a little bit of recapitulation. He writes a letter is written by him. He is writing a letter is being written by him. He has written a letter has been written by him. See, in present perfect it can be has or have depending upon the subject. Suppose the question was, I have written a letter. So here it is have written. But in passive voice it will change. A letter has been written. It won't be correct to write have been written. Why? Because here the subject is a letter, which is third person singular number. But the question I is a first person singular pronoun. So where do we use have and has? I have, we have, you have. You singular also you have, you plural also you have, and third person plural number they have. And in third person singular number we use has. So when we change it, a letter which is third person singular number, it takes has. That is why I have written a letter will become a letter has been written by me. But here it is a letter has been written by him. Why? Because he is a third person. So here also has, and when letter comes here, this is also third person. So has remains, we just put a been in the middle. So I hope in your present tense you have no confusions. Then what do? We go to the past tense. This is your simple past form. He wrote a letter. Simple past. So what will your answer be? A letter was written by him. It's as simple. In simple present it was, he writes a letter, is written. The verb changes into is written. In simple past, wrote changes into was written. So only a little bit of change. Is changes into was. Suppose this was a plural subject. He wrote letters. In that case, the answer would have been letters were written by him. So was or were depends upon your subject. Since it is a letter, that is why a letter was written. So simple present and simple past, there is not much difference. Only is changes into was. Now for your past continuous. So in present continuous it was, he is writing a letter. In your past continuous it will be he was writing a letter, and the answer will also be similar, very close. In the present continuous, in passive voice, the answer was a letter is being written by him. Here it will be a letter was being written. Simple. Is changes into was here also. So he was writing a letter was being written by him. So what did you all notice? This ing as if comes here and the main verb changes into its past participle form. So was being written. And as I said, if this was a plural object, when it became the subject, it would have been letters were being written by him. Now I think there is no more difficulty because it's very similar to the present tense. And now let's go to the past perfect form, which is the easiest of all. He had written a letter. It's just like he has written a letter. In the past tense, past perfect, he had written a letter. And what do? We don't do much, because in present tense at least there was a doubt whether it should be has or have. But in past tense nothing, because everything is had for all the pronouns. So we just put a been in the middle and change the subject and object, as simple. And for your past perfect continuous, the same rule applies. The present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous and future perfect continuous, none of them can be changed by rule. Okay? Now we move to our future tense. In future tense it's easier. Why? Because in only two cases you can change, in simple future and in future perfect. Future continuous also cannot be changed. Future perfect continuous, so just like present perfect continuous and past perfect continuous, we cannot change it. But even future continuous will not be changed according to the rules. It cannot be changed. Whereas present continuous can be changed, past continuous can be changed, we have seen that. But future continuous takes a cross. So in future tense we need to remember only two. So what is your simple future? He will write a letter will be written by him. In future we know that it can be will or shall depending upon your subject. Most often for the first person we use shall, and in second and third person we use will. So he will write a letter will be written by him. Suppose it were I shall write a letter. But the answer won't be a letter shall be written by me. No, a letter will be written by me. Why? Because a letter we don't use shall, we will use will. So shall write does not always take shall be written. So we have to be careful about it. And only one thing more remains, that is your future perfect. That is also very easy. It's more or less like the present perfect, and only we put the future will or shall before it. For example, so which is the future perfect form? Will have written. For the right verb, he will have written a letter. So as according to the rule, a letter will have been written by him. In the present tense it was have written changes into have been written. It's the same here, only the will before everything. So he will have written a letter will become a letter will have been written by him. So, and I told you that the two continuous in your future, they don't change by rule. So you have to remember how many? 8. 3 in simple, 3 in present tense, simple present, present continuous and present perfect. I'll recapitulate, go through it once again. He writes a letter is written by him. He is writing a letter is being written by him. He has written a letter has been written by him. In the same way, in past tense, he wrote a letter was written by him. He was writing a letter was being written by him. And he had written a letter had been written by him. So 3 plus 3, 6, and 2 in your future tense. He will write a letter will be written by him. And future perfect, he will have written a letter will have been written by him. So these are the basic ones. And there are something more we need to remember, like in your imperative sentences, when you don't begin with a subject, you begin with a verb. Then what do we do? Just wait. Imperative sentence, it begins with a verb. Suppose, shut the door. It's an order, shut the door. So how do we do it? There is a formula. What is it? Let plus object plus be verb plus past participle. Let plus object plus be verb plus pp plus restman. If there are something more in the sentence, it will come after that. So what do? We start writing our answer. Let, then your object is the door. So after let, it's the object. So let's bring the door here. So let the door. Now we are supposed to bring the be verb. So let's put a be here. So let the door be, and then pp means the past participle form of the verb. The verb was shut. So it will be shut, shut, shut. We know shut remains the same in its past tense as well as the past participle, like cut, cut, cut. We cannot say shutted or cutted. It remains the same. So your answer will be let the door be shut. Same for your open the door. Let plus object the door be opened. Open, past participle open. Carry the bag upstairs. Let the bag be carried. Carry, past participle carried. Carry is a weak verb. So carry, carried, carried. So let the bag be carried, and then I said rest means if some words are there still, it will come now. So let the bag be carried upstairs. So got it? This is your imperative sentence, and sometimes the sentence has two objects, or rather the verb has two objects. Like my father gave me a pen on my birthday. So here it has two objects. One is your direct object and one is indirect one. Indirect ones are the pronouns. So like my father gave me, it's not always pronoun, it can be another noun also. My father gave me a pen. A pen, here there are two answers. A pen was given to me by my father on my birthday, or I was given a pen on my birthday by my father. So verb gave changes into was given. The object, one object is me, it becomes I if we operate with it, if we do with it. If we take the indirect object, then me will come in front as the subject and it becomes I. If we take the direct object pen, a pen was given to me, then before the indirect object we put a to. Wait, I'll write it down for you. My father gave me a pen. As I told you, me, it's an indirect object and pen is your direct one. So if we take the direct object, then the answer will be a pen was given to me. So before the indirect object or indirect one, what do? We put a to me by my father. And if we begin with the indirect subject, that means if we are to begin with the pronoun me, it changes into I. I was given a pen by my father. It's as simple. I hope you have no doubts in this. Regarding questions, regarding interrogative sentences, what do? Like if the question begins with a WH word, like who killed the snake, then in passive it will be by whom, killed will become was killed. And you know that in your interrogative, the subject comes in the middle, it is sandwiched by the auxiliary verb and the main verb. So who killed the snake will become by whom was the snake killed. Who killed the snake? So what will happen to who? It will change into by whom. And killed, we know in our simple past, killed will become was killed. But since it's a question, the subject comes in between. So by whom was the snake killed? Okay, so who wrote this letter? By whom was this letter written? And there are some more questions like suppose the question, we know there are two types of questions. One are yes no question like this one, it begins with a verb, and another type of question begins with a WH verb, which we just did, who killed the snake, by whom. But suppose it were to begin with a verb, do. If it is do or does, it will have in its passive voice is or am or are. And if it begins with did, that means the past tense, it will take was or were. So do they play cricket? Is cricket played by them? So play will be is played, and cricket, the subject comes in the middle. I told you the subject is sandwiched in an interrogative sentence. So is cricket played by them? So this they comes here and it becomes them. So I hope there are no problems, and remember one thing, you can get a googly question where there are no objects, because the verb has to be a transitive verb in order to be changed into a passive voice. Like suppose, very well, put your questions in the comment section and I am there to answer you. No doubts. If you have any questions, if you have any doubts, please feel free. And if you have not subscribed to my channel up till now, please do. And if this video was liked by you, passive voice, then do press the like button. Don't be miserly. Do press the like button. It inspires me to carry on with the work. So, goodbye, have a good time, and wait for my next video.